The story begins on a steep, unforgiving mountain face. Becky and her boyfriend Dan, along with Becky's best friend, are scaling the sheer cliffside. For Becky and Dan, this climb isn't just an adventure, it's a shared romantic escape, hundreds of feet above the ground, dangling only by ropes and courage. As they ascend, Becky's friend leads the way, while the couple follows closely behind. She can't resist teasing them, poking fun at their little romantic moments, even in the middle of such a dangerous climb. Halfway up, Dan notices a small dark cave carved into the rock wall. Curiosity takes over. He secures his clip close to the opening and decides to take a peek inside. But in an instant, his curiosity turns into chaos. A swarm of bats bursts out of the cave, flapping wildly into the air. Startled, Dan loses his balance and slips, dangling upside down, swinging helplessly from the rope. Panicked, he reaches out for the rock wall, but the wind is too strong. He can't get a grip. Desperate, he calls out to Becky, urging her to unclip and come down to him. Becky and her friends scramble to help, but tragedy strikes before they can reach him. The anchors holding Dan's rope rip out of the rock under his weight. And just like that, Dan plummets. The sickening impact below leaves Becky frozen in shock. Her scream echoes through the mountains as she watches the man she loves disappear before her eyes. After that day, Becky's life changes forever. Grief consumes her. She's shattered, unable to move on, haunted by the memory of Dan's fall, and the feeling that part of her died with him on that mountain. Becky couldn't let go of Dan. Almost a year had passed, but she was still drowning in grief. Most nights she was drunk, and when she wasn't, she would dial Dan's number, just to hear his voicemail, just to remember the sound of his voice. She ignored everyone else, her family, her friends. She shut them out completely. She lived alone, her apartment in ruins, untouched for weeks. A box of Dan's ashes sat in a corner, covered in dust, abandoned just like her life. Her father, worried and heartbroken, tried everything to pull her out of this spiral. One night, he followed her out of a bar, stopping her on the street. What started as concern turned into a heated argument. He begged her to move on, to let Dan rest and reclaim her own life. But Becky snapped. "You know what I want?" she screamed. "I want to be alone. So just leave me alone." She stormed back into her apartment. Surrounded by filth and memories, Becky broke down. Her shaking hands reached for a bottle of sleeping pills. She poured them out, ready to end the pain once and for all. But before she could swallow them, the doorbell rang. It was Hunter, her old friend, the only spark of light in Becky's dark, collapsing world. Becky was surprised. "I didn't know you were coming." Hunter smiled. "I just thought I'd check on you. But actually, your dad called me." He was worried. He didn't know what else to do. They both laughed softly, breaking the heavy silence. For the first time in months, Becky felt a little less alone. That's when Hunter pulled out her phone, showing Becky a photo of a massive structure, the B-67 television tower, the tallest in the United States, standing in the middle of the desert. Her plan was simple. Climb it. Scatter Dan's ashes from the top. Becky froze. "No." "I gave up climbing." Hunter didn't back down. "Becky, you'll never get past your fear until you face it. Remember what Dan always said? Live life without fear. This is your chance to honor him and to set yourself free." That night, Becky wrestled with the idea, but by morning, she had made her choice. "Let's do it," she whispered. "Let's live." The two friends packed their gear, food, and essentials and set out on the road. On the way, they stopped at a roadside diner. Over greasy plates and black coffee, Hunter revealed how she had kept herself afloat after Dan's death. "I became a vlogger," she admitted. "Travel, challenges, crazy adventures. It saved me. And it pays the bills, too." As they chatted with the waitress, Hunter asked about the tower's location. The woman smirked. "You don't need Google Maps for that. Just look out the window." And there it was, looming in the distance, piercing the desert sky. After a restless night at a motel, they set out at dawn. Driving through the barren wasteland, They finally reached the fence that surrounded the tower, meant to keep out trespassers and wild animals. From there, they walked on foot. Along the way, they stumbled upon a half-dead dog, swarmed by vultures. Becky shouted at the birds, chasing them away. Hunter, however, pulled out her phone, snapped a picture, and posted it online with the caption, "Who wants delivery?" Becky looked horrified. "That's not funny." Hunter smirked. "Relax. Look, 350 likes in under a minute." Becky shook her head. "Maybe your followers are all serial killers." Finally, they reached the base of the tower. Looking up, Becky's knees weakened. The structure stretched endlessly into the sky, rusted and swaying slightly in the desert wind. It's so much taller than I imagined," Becky whispered, her voice trembling. Hunter placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "It's beautiful. And you can do this. For Dan. For yourself." Becky closed her eyes, took a shaky breath, and the climb began. And so, the climb began. Hunter and Becky tied themselves together with a 50-foot rope, standard for climbers, but for them it was a lifeline. If one slipped, the other could hold on. This was no ordinary climb. The B-67 tower was ancient, rusting, and scheduled for decommissioning. Every bolt, every joint carried decades of wear. But Hunter thrived on danger. She lived for the thrill of dancing with death. The tower loomed over them, twice the height of the Eiffel Tower. Its massive base narrowed as it rose, like a steel spear piercing the desert sky. At first, there were stairs bolted along the inner frame. Hunter led the way, fearless, while Becky followed behind, trembling but determined. This wasn't just about the climb. For Becky, every step was a battle against fear, and a tribute to Dan. The higher they went, the worse the condition of the structure became. Rusted steps rattled under their boots, some ready to snap. And then it happened. As Becky reached for a rung, the metal broke free with a loud crack, plummeting into the abyss below. Becky froze. Her breath caught in her throat. It felt like a warning from God himself. But Hunter called back, steady and fearless, "Keep going! We're almost there." Finally, they reached the first platform. Here, the protective framework ended. Above them, the climb grew deadlier. Stairs mounted directly to a single exposed pole, with no guardrails, no safety net. Becky's legs trembled. "I think this is far enough." But Hunter shook her head. "No, we finish this. For Dan." After catching their breath, they pressed on. Far below, the diner where they'd eaten just last night looked like a child's toy. Becky managed a nervous smile. But then came a new challenge. Giant satellite dishes blocked their path, bolted into the tower's spine. They had to climb around them, inching along shaking metal. One bolt snapped free, tumbling into the void. Becky gasped. "Relax," Hunter said, forcing a grin. "We've got this." Step by step, they pushed higher, until finally, they reached the top platform, the podium of the tower. From here, the entire desert stretched endlessly in every direction. They had made it. But Hunter wasn't done. Pulling out her camera and a 4K drone, she recorded every moment, capturing their triumph. Then, because Hunter was Hunter, she decided to push the limits even further. She dangled herself one-handed from the very top of the tower, posing for the drone while Becky screamed, "Hunter! Stop! Are you insane?" Hunter laughed and climbed back up, fearless. Then she turned to Becky. "Your turn." Becky shook her head. "No. No way." Hunter's eyes locked on hers. "If you don't face this, you'll never beat your fear." Reluctantly, Becky agreed. Hunter held her by one arm as Becky hung from the ledge, legs dangling over the endless void. Her heart raced, but she did it. For Dan. For herself. Hunter snapped the photo and pulled her back to safety. And then, finally, Becky opened the small urn she had carried. With tears in her eyes, she released Dan's ashes into the wind, watching them scatter into the sky. It was her final goodbye. Their mission complete, it was time to descend. Becky went first, carefully stepping onto the shaky stairs. But disaster struck again. A section of the ladder gave way, ripping free from the tower. Becky plummeted, caught only by the rope. She dangled in the air, screaming, while the detached stairs crashed past her. "Hold on!" Hunter shouted, bracing her leg against the pole, pulling with everything she had. With a desperate heave, she dragged Becky back to safety. But their bags, carrying food, water, and supplies, fell with the broken stairs, landing far below on a satellite dish. Shaken but alive, the girls sat on the tiny platform, breathing hard. They laughed through their fear, exhilarated. But their smiles didn't last long. Looking down, they realized the truth. They were trapped. The stairs were gone. The ground was miles beneath them. And in the middle of the desert, no one could hear their cries for help. Hunter tried to calm Becky. "Don't panic. When those stairs fell, someone must have heard. They'll call 911. Rescue will come. We just have to wait." Becky searched the platform and found a small emergency box. Inside were a pair of binoculars and a flare gun. "This is good," Hunter said. "This is perfect. We've got options." But hours passed, the sun burned overhead, 5 long hours, and still, no one came. Their hope was fading, their bodies weak, and their minds on the edge of breaking. After hours of waiting on top of the rusting tower, Becky and Hunter slipped into survival mode. Hunter remembered something. When they had posted photos earlier, there was signal at the ground level, not at the top. That gave them an idea. They decided to try an egg drop challenge with Becky's phone. They wrapped it inside a shoe, stuffed it with padding, and threw it down, hoping it would survive the fall. Hunter peered through the binoculars, but the ground wasn't visible. They could only assume the phone was shattered. Their first plan had failed. But Hunter spotted something, a parked RV outside the fence. Inside were two strangers, a couple partying in the desert. Finally, hope flickered again. They waited, ready to fire their flare, when the couple looked up. But before that, one of the men wandered near the tower with his dog, busy on the phone. Becky threw one of her shoes, then another. He didn't even notice. So they saved their last chance for the flare. As the sun went down, they fired it into the sky. This time, the couple looked up. Becky and Hunter cheered, hugging each other. They thought they were saved. Through the binoculars, Hunter watched in relief as the RV moved towards the tower. But then, it stopped at Hunter's car, and instead of helping, the couple stole her car and drove away. Their one moment of hope had turned into a nightmare. With no water, no food, and their supplies still trapped on the antenna dish below, survival became desperate. Becky was already injured from earlier, bleeding from her thigh. So Hunter made a bold decision. She would climb down to retrieve the bag. She tied the rope, set her harness, and lowered herself down. But she couldn't reach. In a daring move, she unhooked and leaped onto the antenna itself, grabbing the bag. Stranded there, she stretched out her selfie stick, hooked the rope, and shouted to Becky to pull. Becky pulled with everything she had. At the last second, Hunter slipped, but somehow she made it back. Their supplies were safe: water, a drone, and Becky's phone. They had another chance. They scribbled a desperate note on a diner receipt with eyeliner. "Stuck at B67 Tower. Call 911. They tied it to the drone and sent it flying. For a moment, hope soared with it. Until the battery warning beeped. The drone had to be recalled. Another failure. But Becky refused to give up. "We can charge it," she said. At the very top of the tower, there was a bulb socket. If they could reach it, maybe they could power the drone. Becky climbed up, barehanded, clinging to the rusting pole, no rope, no safety. She managed to plug it in, but vultures circled above, sensing the blood from her wound. They dove at her, claws slashing, wings beating. Somehow, Becky fought them off and charged the drone before climbing back down exhausted. They launched it again, this time guiding it carefully towards the diner across the road. The drone buzzed low, carrying their only hope. But as it neared the diner, a truck came out of nowhere and smashed it. Their last chance destroyed. Now, with no food, no water, and no sleep for 72 hours, Under the scorching desert sun, the vultures closed in. That's when the truth hit Becky. Hunter wasn't there. Becky remembered the fall. When Hunter tried to bring the bag up, she slipped, for real this time. Becky had only pulled the bag, not Hunter. Her mind, refusing to accept it, had imagined Hunter's presence all along. The realization shattered her. Alone, broken, and starving, Becky cried her heart out. But then, survival instincts kicked in. When a vulture swooped down to attack, Becky used herself as bait. She fought it, killed it, and ate it raw. Disgusting, horrifying, but it kept her alive. And then, one final plan. She climbed down to Hunter's body, still hanging on the antenna. With trembling hands, she took Hunter's shoes, stuffed her phone inside, and placed it within the body. Then, she pushed it down. If the vultures didn't get it, the phone would reach the ground safely. Hours passed. Becky, weak and barely conscious, held on. And then, salvation. A rescue team arrived. The signal had gone through. Her phone had delivered the message. Becky was finally saved. But at what cost? And that was the story of Fall, 2022. A chilling reminder that the line between life and death can hang by nothing more than hope. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. And tell me in the comments, which movie would you like me to cover next?